This is Cashing Out on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network.
It's hour number 2 of Cashing Out right here on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network. Boy, that was a first hour of the show. We were supposed to have Matt Moore of Action Network in this block. Matt, being the kind gentleman that he is, he saw what was going on, and he will be joining us in 15 minutes because we've got a title game to get prepared for. I was thinking that it was going to be Duke versus Florida for the longest of time. No, sir. We have to unpack what we just saw there. I let out a big, giant, holy crap when we got off air during the break. So, my goodness. Houston, 70-67. They get the job done. We're going to be talking about it all throughout the hour. We'll get you guys some NBA in 15 minutes with Matt Moore, and we'll get you guys some baseball a little bit later on as well. But first things first, we absolutely need to just digest what happened. I feel like I need the Tums right now for everything that has happened right now. Break out the Rolaids, break out whatever the heck you've got, because Houston just pulled off this win by a count of 70-67 after they looked dead. This game was done. They were dead. They were buried. They had no rights left whatsoever. And somehow, some way, they were able to do it. For Duke, I hate to put it this way, because when you have a spot like this, one team, in my opinion, needs to come up a little bit short. I'm not going to use the word choke. Choke is not the appropriate word, in my opinion, but come up short, I think, is very fair. And one team needs to absolutely excel. And for Houston, my goodness, did they excel. Houston loses a turnover in this battle in this game, 9-7. For Duke, they go 7-17 from three-point range, but L.J. Cryer, he came up so clutch in this game, 6-9 of three-point range. And how about Juwan Roberts? He had those 1-and-1 free throws with Houston down 1 point. A season-long 62.2% free throw shooter, knocked them down like he was a 90% free throw shooter. Knocked him down like he was Steph Curry or something like that. In Houston, they are going to the title game against Florida. We are starting to get those openers right now. I saw the initial line at DraftKings being Florida a 1-point favorite. That total hovering right around about 140.5 or so. That has ticked up to a 141.5. So we will see how this progresses. So Florida a 1-point. There's now Florida a 1-point underdog. I am mistaken. Houston now the 1-point favorite over here at DraftKings. That total is 141.5. Now, I came on this network 3 weeks ago. I said that we were going to get a Florida versus Houston national title matchup. We have gotten a Florida versus Houston national title matchup. I set my final score at a 142 when I filled out my bracket, and I had Florida getting the job done. I'm standing by it. We are going to stick with our guns right here. I've got Florida as a 2-point favorite. I set my total at a 142. Now with Houston, they had an incredible comeback. You do have to wonder, after something like we just saw, how much is that going to linger? And I have a little bit less fear about that with Houston rather than I would with another team. Because these are not 18, 19, 20-year-olds. These are grown, stinking men right here. If you take a look at the average age for Houston and you compare that to the Oklahoma City Thunder, the average age is a difference of about 2 years if you look at it. It might be a skosh higher, might be a skosh lower, but these are a bunch of guys that play themselves a whole lot of basketball. Florida has the exact same. I do feel like Florida has honestly perhaps a little bit more depth, though, than what we saw out of Duke, because with Duke, they had the better player in terms of Cooper Flagg down low, but what we just witnessed out of Walter Clayton as well, that's going to get lost in all this. Walter Clayton put on a master class in the second half in that game against Auburn. He is, I believe, the first player since Larry Bird to score 30-plus points in an Elite Eight and a Final Four game. When you're doing things that Larry Legend once did, you know that you're doing something right. But with this Florida bunch, I have been just so impressed by them, and I'm so impressed by this Houston team. You cannot say, because there were so many people that were like, oh, I wanted the Cinderellas and everything like that, and trust me, I did too. I wanted to see UC San Diego knock off Michigan. I wanted to see Liberty make a run in the NCAA tournament, but we've got two absolutely stellar teams right here. The best four teams were duking it out in San Antonio, and on this night, how many times do you think Houston is able to pull off that comeback? 1 out of 100? you know what? This just so happened to be the one. And these guys just had so much resolve about them. You have to be nothing but impressed. But again, when you have this, you can be a little bit of a prisoner in the moment. You can get caught up in what you're seeing right now. And trust me, like I'm caught up in what I'm seeing right now. I don't think I've ever seen a Final Four game quite like that. But at the same time, I do think that when I take a look at it, that's going to linger a little bit into Monday. Could that be a little bit of a booster for Houston? Could that be a case where perhaps the adrenaline that they get at the beginning part of the game is amazing, but you sort of have that crash down in the second half as well, and that has been Florida. Florida has been able to grind teams down, and they have been masters at being able to take over games in the second half. That's a big reason why I'm going to be willing to stick with Florida in this circumstance. And right now, if you're looking at the money line, on the money line, Florida's minus 105. Houston is a minus 115. I personally set Florida as the favorite, so I personally would just be looking at the money line personally, because you'd be able to catch a +1 at what I'm seeing right now at DraftKings. You'd be laying minus 115 juice, and I'm right now refreshing to see what we've all got, because you're getting different market numbers in the market. Like I right now look at FanDuel. FanDuel right now has Florida as a matter of fact, 1.5 point favorite. That money line is minus 111. Absolutely shop around right now, because every single book is going to be posting up something different. If you like Florida like I do, you want to be able to find the best of it. Like I'd be looking at that minus 105 right now at DraftKings if I had access to it. I'm currently out here in lovely Las Vegas, so I do not. So we are going to be looking to see what the Las Vegas books are going to be posting up, and it'll be probably coming within the next few minutes. But right now, the market-wide total is a 141.5. Right now, I lean to the over. I did set my total at a 142. It is a Florida team that they like to play up-tempo, and I think that this is something that you do need to keep in mind as well when you're handicapping this total. Keep in mind that if this game is even anywhere near close, and this is a big reason why, while we were doing this show here in hour number 1, when that total was sitting at 132.5, when Houston was down 5 to 6 points with a minute to go, I said take the over. And that live over was able to get there for you. So anyone that tailed, there you go. But you get a lot of fouling. You get a lot of harebrained just crazy circumstances in general in the back half of these games. Even though Houston is supreme on defense, even though Florida is supreme on defense, you are going to be able to get yourself those late game scoring chances, and these teams are going to do everything humanly possible in this spot. I mean, even if the team is, say, down 10 points with a minute remaining, if you're down 10 points in the national title game and there's a minute remaining, you're fouling. Like, there's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. You've gone that far. You're going to be willing to give a few more fouls. This is not a case of, oh, I just want to avoid the post-game presser and the post-game meal and everything like that. No, your season's online. This is exactly what you dream of. You do everything humanly possible to be able to get there. So that's a big reason why I do set my total just a hair higher on this spot, which is why I currently take a look at that 141.5. I'm in on the over. Now, if it ticks up any further, then that would push me out on it, but I'll be willing to take a shot there. But I do believe that Florida is just a little bit of the deeper team, and it's going to be getting lost, because what you see last is what you react to the most. And the game that we saw last was, once again, probably the greatest Final Four game I feel like I've ever witnessed. And I don't want to ever be one of those people that's like, oh, it's the greatest ever and everything like that, because we throw around the word GOAT way too much. We always have the debate about legacy and everything like that, and it gets too much. I get over-nauseated. I don't want to be one of those people. That's the greatest Final Four game that I've ever witnessed. Like, that's right there with, if you're looking at title games, I would probably put the Kansas versus Memphis game above that, just because with Memphis choking it away with all those missed free throws and everything like that, the Mario Chalmers hit 3. I don't know if anything is ever going to be able to quite top that, but in terms of non-title games, the way that you get to the Final Four, even that San Diego State versus Florida Atlantic game a few years ago, where you did have Lamont Butler hit that shot that sent San Diego State to the title game, I would say with everything that was building with this game, the way that you thought that Houston was just absolutely dead to rights, I would put this game above it. And if you even want to go even further on this comeback, because I was talking about it, down 13 points with about 10 or so minutes remaining, it gets even crazier than that. For Houston, they were down 9 points with about 2 minutes and 40 seconds remaining. If you want to go even further than that, they were down, I believe it was a count of 67-61 with less than a minute remaining. For Houston, they scored the final 9 points in that game. The last time Duke was able to score was when they were at the 1-and-1 free throw line with Colin Kneppel knocking down a free throw with 1:14 remaining. That's what the Houston defense was able to do. And they were in what I thought was going to be a must-foul mode, and they did give the foul. Duke misses that 1-and-1 free throw. And as I'm thinking about it a little bit more, I was saying that I don't want to utilize the word choke to describe what just happened to Duke. The more that I think about it, the more that I actually think that that word might be accurate, because you had the out-of-bounds play that they botched. You had Tyrese Proctor missing the 1-and-1 free throw. The more that I think about it, man, that's not great. Now, obviously, Houston, Herculean run. Absolutely amazing what we just saw out of them. But, man, it's wild. Like, this is why you love college basketball, and this is why you want the best 4 teams out there as well. Like, there were so many people that were clamoring for the upsets. Give me this over some sort of a 3 seed that might have been able to make the Final Four and would have gotten lambasted by any one of these other 3 teams. So that was very big to me. But right now, we are seeing those openers coming out. Some places have Florida as a very slim 1-point favorite. Right now, DraftKings, it seems like they are the, shall we say, black sheep in the market. They right now have Houston as a 1-point favorite. Circa just posted up their number. Total of 142, so they're in agreement with myself. I would not be willing to bet that as of right now. Need to get a 141.5 or less for me to be willing to take a shot on the over, and you're going to have a little bit of time to be able to bet this. Like, the market is going to be maturing. You're going to be seeing some movement on this within the next few minutes. So if you, like myself, maybe you see a little bit of an edge on the side, like personally I do like Florida to be able to get the job done. That minus 105 money line that I was seeing a bit before, that's calling my name. If you don't find as much with regards to the total, hey, you don't have to bet it right now. You're going to have yourself some opportunity. There's going to be a little bit of movement in the market. I'm not saying that we're going to see like 5 points worth of movement, because I certainly don't think that that's going to be the case, but you could see this total go down to like a 141. You could see it go up to a 143, something like that. So I do think that that's best advice there. And man, that was just absolutely insane what we saw there. We're also seeing some insanity with regards to the NBA front. We'll certainly be talking about the title game all night long, but we want to get you guys some other sweats as well. We're seeing a lot in terms of the NBA front. We're seeing a lot in terms of Major League Baseball as well. And Matt Moore, he always gives us more. He does a tremendous job over at Action Network. We're going to be talking about the National Basketball Association with them on the flip side right here on Cashing Out on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network. We're back here on Cashing Out on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network. Great to be joined by this man on the Progressive Guest Line, as we've got Matt Moore aboard. He does such great work over at Action Network, taking a look at all things that we've got on the NBA front. And Matt, always great to get you aboard. Thank you so much.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Thank you so much for joining me. And Matt, we've got ourselves a lot of hoopla that's going down in the hoops world. We just got ourselves a national title in terms of college basketball. And as we know in the NBA, there's been a lot that has happened over the last few weeks in general. And just how do you take a look at the landscape of what we are getting in terms of that Western Conference? Because it feels like it's the Thunder and everyone else. With the Thunder, they've put together just a historic season, in my opinion. But how do you take a look at the rest of the teams out there in the West? Because I feel like everyone else outside the Thunder, they're really jockeying for second place. And it's become very intriguing what we've seen out of those other teams.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's pretty interesting, right? The Rockets are likely to secure the 2nd seed, but you've got the 3rd through the 8th spot that are all going to be separated by basically a game here very shortly. And so like that's going to make for some interesting positioning in terms of what the bracket looks like. Something to keep in mind with Oklahoma City. This is a weird stat. So OKC is this elite defense. Like, they're one of the best defenses we've ever seen. They are dead last in opponent 3-point rate. And what I mean by that is they give up the most 3-pointers of any team in the league per 100 possessions. That doesn't make much sense. They're number 1 in opponent 3-point percentage. So you get to take a lot of shots, but you miss a lot of them. Check to make sure that wasn't in garbage time. That was inflating it. Nope, it's the same, 28th in non-garbage time. When they face a team that can actually put 5 shooters on the floor and there's not a good option to funnel the ball to, it's going to be interesting to see what happens with OKC's defense. I think they're definitely good enough to win the West. I think they're definitely legit. I don't think they're a paper tiger, but I do think that they're not necessarily as far ahead of the pack as the record and stats will indicate. I think teams like Golden State, Minnesota, the Lakers are all in a position to be able to challenge them effectively. And I think it's going to come down to what the bracket looks like and how really luck, injuries, and attrition wind up shaping this playoff race in the West.
And I'm so glad that you mentioned the Minnesota Timberwolves. They did go on the road, got the job done tonight against the 76ers, 114-109. Rudy Gobert had himself a very nice performance as well. How do you take a look at this team, one that has been a little bit up and down this year? We know that they were able to make that nice run in the playoffs last year, and it does feel like this is a team that's starting to peak at the right time.
Yeah, so a big story with them is that a couple of weeks ago, they were 10-11 in games decided by 3 points or less. Like, that's not just an outlier in terms of like a lot of games that are basically coin flips. It's like, it's not the record, it's the number of games. They've played in so many of those, and you can say like, well, they haven't been good enough to separate themselves. Sure, but now they're up to 11 or 12-11 after tonight's win over the Sixers in those games. And so you have this kind of opportunity for them to be better in the clutch. And I think that stabilizes a lot. The numbers for them under the hood, if you watch them, this is a team that has a high 3-point rate. They've got an elite playmaker and shot creator in Anthony Edwards who can take over a game. They've got one of the best defenses in the NBA still. They've got versatility with Naz Reid and a deeper bench, I think, than people realize, with guys like Jalen Clark and even, I think, guys like Josh Minott that can contribute if called upon. They got a lot of versatility. Julius Randle has meshed with them, and they got great coaching. This Wolves team, I think, is very dangerous. I think there's entirely a chance for them not only to make an upset in the first round, I think they're a serious Western Conference contender.
Yep, I think that they are really starting to build some momentum. And when you've got a guy like an Anthony Edwards that's able to lead the way as well, yeah, you certainly have yourself a shot. As Matt Moore, he does such great work over at Action Network, is joining me right here on Cashing Out on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network. And if you want to get in on a little bit of action, First Bet, they've got you covered. You're able to get promotions on hundreds of different thrilling horse races every single day. And when you go to firstbet.com and utilize promo code of VSiN200, that's VSIN200, you're able to get up to a $200 rebate for 20% off of all of your wagers in the first 60 days. That's all over at the number one stbet.com. As we do have Matt Moore joining me right here on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network, and we do have ourselves some great games that are going to be going down on Sunday. And want to get your thoughts on the Cavs versus the Kings, because the Cleveland Cavaliers, they certainly have been able to show out well all season long, and with the Kings, it certainly has been a fascinating season to say the least. I think that that's the appropriate word to be able to put there. As for the Cleveland Cavaliers right now, they do find themselves as 10-point favorites. Total is about 136.5. How are you breaking this game down?
Yeah, so the Cavaliers, I think, still have an outside shot of being able to secure the 1 seed in home court throughout the finals, with the Oklahoma City Thunder having lost that game to the Rockets and having a pretty tough schedule to close. So I think there's actually a little bit of incentive here for the Cavaliers to keep their foot on the pedal. The Kings, meanwhile, seem to be spiraling off again, and they just cannot seem to get any sort of consistency out of this team, which is not surprising given all the trades and how disappointing they've been overall. Rumors of Domantas Sabonis possibly looking to move on in the offseason. I make this game 15, and I can't get to any sort of number where it is as low as it is currently. So when I look at this Cleveland Cavaliers team, this is exactly the type of team that I want to be able to lay the points with the Cavs against. The Kings being a team that's not great defensively, whose offense, because of some of the mechanisms that it uses, the Cavaliers are well equipped in their pick and roll coverage to be able to slow down. So I really like this matchup for Cleveland, and I like the number. I'm going to lay the wood with the Cavs tomorrow.
And here's a matchup that I would absolutely love to see in the playoffs as well. How about the Rockets going on the road against Golden State Warriors? Right now, the Warriors, 4.5-point favorites. That total's right in the neighborhood, about 225.5, 226.5. How do you take a look at this one with a Rockets team that, as you mentioned, they are right now chasing and trying to lock down that 2 seed. And for the Warriors, they've really been able to build some upward momentum ever since the All-Star break.
Yeah, I like the Rockets here quite a bit. Now, wait to see what the injury report looks like tomorrow to make sure that they're not going to pull back, because effectively the other teams losing have opened up the door for the Rockets to clinch the 2 seed. But this, to me, feels like a great letdown spot for the Warriors. Now, you could say that every game for the Warriors has been a letdown spot for the last 3 weeks as they've been rolling through everybody with Jimmy Butler. But after that win versus the Nuggets, that was a big emotional win, 3 and 4 nights. Now you kind of have this letdown game versus a Houston Rockets team that is so physical and is so demanding and plays so hard every single minute. I actually really like this matchup in favor of the Rockets. I like Amen Thompson. The way Jalen Green's been playing has been really impressive, and I'm not a Jalen Green guy. I like their 2 big lineup to be able to punish the Warriors on the interior with their smaller ball lineups. Warriors are still getting away playing guys like Luis Santos. They're playing Quentin Post. They're playing a lot of guys that, quite honestly, probably not playoff guys. Brandon Podziemski has 54 points in his last 2 performances. I don't think that holds up versus this Rockets elite defense. So I'm going to grab the points and actually be on the money line with the Houston Rockets to win this game outright and slow down the Dubs.
Yeah, I absolutely love Quentin Post when he was at Boston College last year. Very versatile for the ACC. Not so much a guy that I want to be trusting into the postseason. So, great point there. And we do have ourselves as well this game that you're taking a look at is we've got the Raptors going up against the Brooklyn Nets. Obviously, the Nets, not a team that we're looking at too much for the postseason. And right now, they're 2-point underdogs at home. 214 to 214.5 is the total. What are you looking at in this spot? One that, let's call it what it is, fewer playoff implications than the previous game between the Warriors and the Rockets.
Yeah, not as sexy of a matchup here as Rockets and Warriors.
Money
but
to be made,
this
though.
is where you can find a lot of value, I think, late in the season. When you've got this team and the Raptors that have been so good against the spread this season, they've been absolutely terrific. The Brooklyn Nets, on the other hand, they are testing out guys. They're seeing which guys they're going to want to keep. And I actually like a lot of the guys that they've found this season. Tyrese Martin, a two-way player, I think has given them really good minutes. Nick Claxton's questionable in this game, and he's unlikely to play in this contest. I think that's actually a significant thing here with the Raptors being a little bit more vulnerable on the interior. Raptors have done a really good job of basically not manipulating for seeding in the lottery so much that it's egregious, but making sure that it really only happens versus the good teams. So they lose to the good teams, but against these worse teams like the Nets, there's actually, I think, an opportunity to bet on Toronto to win outright. So with them being a 2-point favorite, I do not think they're going to be able to outmaneuver the Nets in the tank war. I'll take the Toronto Raptors -2 here. I like this number. I make it 5.
I like that look, and as I always like to say, value is value. It doesn't matter if you're looking at the biggest of the big games, the national title on Monday, the Warriors versus the Rockets, or if you're looking at two teams that are most likely going to be out of the postseason. There's value to be had there, and Matt, do just want to get your thoughts, final few seconds here, because I know you were in attendance when Nikola Jokic had that historic game a few weeks ago, but for the Denver Nuggets, it's been very up and down for them. Where do you see them at, and just moving forward, because I feel like they're one of the more interesting teams heading into the postseason.
Yeah, I think they're definitely a sell right now. They're definitely a no bet on any sort of futures perspective. Their defense is simply wretched. They are unable to build the right personnel groupings around Nikola Jokic to cover for some of his shortcomings. They might have an extra gear in the playoffs, but I don't know if they have a higher gear in order for them to get through multiple rounds. There's a strong possibility they wind up facing the Wolves. That team has a lot of matchup advantages on them. They could face the Warriors. We saw how that looked on Friday night. They have no verve. They have no spirit to how they're playing right now. That's a very non-analytics thing. If you want the analytics, it's this. They don't shoot a lot of threes. The opponent shoots a lot of threes, and they can't protect the paint. There's too many problems with Denver's defense to be able to bet on them. I'm actually thinking they're going to be a first round out at this point.
Yeah, it's been really interesting to take a look at the Denver Nuggets, and certainly Russell Westbrook has not had the greatest week, to say the least, as well, but we always have a great time when you're aboard, Matt. You do such a great job taking a look at the NBA, and always do appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Always great to be able to get Matt aboard. He does a tremendous job breaking down the association, and it was nice to be able to get a few sweats in for Sunday with regards to the NBA, but right now we are starting to see things start to mature a little bit more in terms of the national title game market as a lot of places open up with Florida as a 1-point favorite. We'll be checking in on the line movement, give you guys a little bit of thoughts there as we saw a ton to unpack with that just tremendous game that we saw between Houston versus Duke, and we'll do so on the flip side right here on Cashing Out on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network.
Welcome back to Cashing Out here on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network.
We're back here on Cashing Out on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network. It was great to be joined by Matt Moore, who he does always give us more when he joins me. He does great work over at Action Network, taking a look on the NBA front. So big thanks to him for joining me in the last segment. And don't worry, if you're a fan of baseball, we'll get you some more baseball picks here towards back half of hour number 2 into hour number 3. But we do certainly need to unpack what we just witnessed in terms of the Final Four and just how this line between Florida and Houston is moving. As right now, pretty much across the board, Florida is a 1-point favorite. They were at DraftKings briefly a 1-point underdog. They have now flipped back to being a 1-point favorite, and that's really where this number is settling as of right now. Totals anywhere between 141.5 to a 142, and market very much agreeing with myself with regards to my handicap. I did handicap my total at a 142. Now, I personally am going to be willing to take a shot on Florida, and I will just lay the -1 rather than taking some sort of money line or anything like that. I mean, certainly you could fall into a circumstance where it might land on one, but you know what? I'm not overly nervous with regards to that regard. Now, sometimes you do find in these games where it's a -1, but the money line, you still are able to find it at a -110. If I do find any of those circumstances, I'd be willing to take a shot there. And Even at like a minus 112, I'd be willing to do so as well. I'm willing to lay the 2 cents just to be able to have that little bit of added insurance and make sure that that 1-point win doesn't turn into a push. But you know what? Right now we are taking a look at this, and it has been just bonkers what we have seen, to say the least. And I would not be surprised if this number does move to Houston perhaps being a 1-point favorite when it's all said and done as well, because we did see that very briefly over at DraftKings, and we saw the Superbook. They opened this up with Houston being about a 1.5-point underdog. They moved this to 1 rather immediately, and again, I've said this a few times. I think that it's worth bringing up once again. A lot of people, they like to react to what they saw last, and what they saw last was one of the most dramatic comebacks that we've seen in the history of college basketball. I don't think I'm speaking in hyperbole, and I don't think I'm overstating it when I say that. That was an absolutely historic game that we saw between Houston versus Duke, with Duke somehow, some way not being able to get the job done there. And for those that are wondering, by the way, I will give you guys a breakdown of the Crown final a little bit later on in the show as well, because I'm sure that that's what everyone came here for. Everyone wants to hear about Central Florida versus Nebraska, which still found it very strange that you had Villanova versus Central Florida going down in overtime when you had the Final Four game going on, but different discussion for a different show on a different day. But that said, certainly we've got ourselves a lot of fun to be taking a look at with regards to the title game, and this is exactly what you want. You had the best 4 teams going to San Antonio, duking it out. You had Houston versus Duke, who I thought that Houston matched up the best against Duke, and I feel like Florida matches up the best against Houston. Like, all 4 of these teams were the best 4 teams in college basketball all along. Like, I mean, this is a big philosophy of mine. You always have to have exceptions to anything. I mean, that's in terms of sports betting, that's in terms of your politics, where you decide to go out to eat at, what you decide to do with regards to your daily routine. You always have to be willing to have exceptions with regards to anything. And I mean, this is just a little bit of general talk right here, not necessarily so much with regards to the game, but I mean, ever since I've been here, my first NCAA tournament here at VSiN was in 2018. In that year, I thought that Virginia was going to win the national championship game. Virginia, you may recall, they were going up against a school by the name of UMBC. They lose in the first round. I vowed after that game that I would never take Virginia to win the national title again. Guess what I did the next year after I was watching Virginia throughout the entirety of the year? I was really liking what I was seeing. I thought that they had cleaned up the mistakes and had really costed them a shot against UMBC, and let's call it what it is. They were also without DeAndre Hunter during that NCAA tournament as well, where they lost to UMBC. I came back with Virginia. Virginia ends up winning the entire thing, albeit very luck box win to be able to win the national title. But as you know, in sports betting, with the way that we take bad beats and everything like that, you apologize to utilize the quote of Conor McGregor, absolutely nobody, when you do get those sorts of wins. And trust me, I apologize absolutely nobody for picking that one out, but I do think that that is something that is so important to be doing. And I mean, that's still one of the crowning moments of my career here at VSiN, because I still remember, because I've had a little bit of interaction with the big man himself, Brent Musburger, who's done just so much to be able to put this network on the map. He remembers when I crashed and burned with Virginia, and one of the things that he said, one of the things that I actually was able to impress him with was coming back with Virginia the next year. He didn't know how I was able to do it, and I still wonder, man, I got let down so badly, and yet somehow, some way, I came crawling back to Virginia. They were somehow, some way able to do it, and that's the big reason why I do have this philosophy. Like, coming into the NCAA tournament, like prior to this year, I was always one of the people that scoffed at people having 4 1 seeds. For those of you that remember our few weeks ago, and our producer Hunt was the man that was producing that. He's producing this show tonight, and he did just such an amazing job with that, and everyone behind the scenes here at VSiN. We've got so many hard workers, and they are the reason why you get all the great content that we do, and they inspire me to be able to be at my best in general. You've got Jarens, who does a great job for all the graphics that you've been seeing, all these lines that have been moving on the fly. He does an absolutely tremendous job there, along with Isaiah. You've got our audio engineer, Chris. If you're listening on SiriusXM channel 158, if you're listening after the fact in podcast form, vsin.com/podcast, does absolutely incredible work there. Our associate producer, Johnny, always sets me up for success. These guys are the absolute best of the best. I really appreciate them, and they're the reason why you get the best here at the network. These guys behind the scenes, they are the backbone of everything that we do. But I mean, I was doing that show with Matt Humans. I still remember it. Matt was giving me crap for giving out 4 1 seeds, and typically I would have been just like Matt Humans. Like, in a typical year, I would have been Matt Humans, being like, you can't have 4 1 seeds. You can't do that. But I just felt like this year, it was a very top-heavy year. I thought that there was going to be a lot of chalk, and I just felt like with Houston and Florida, these were two teams that were destined to be able to meet up with the matchups itself, and that is what has happened thus far. And personally, I'm going for my third correct national title in the last 6 years here at VSiN, in the last 6 tournaments, I should say, because, well, 2020 goes out the window. I didn't get that one wrong, but I didn't get that one right because we had no NCAA tournament. So there's that aspect of things, but I do think that it is so important to just always be willing to keep an open mind. Always be willing to say, hey, you know what? Typically with my bracket, I always say you can't have 4 1 seeds. Maybe this year you do need to have 4 1 seeds. Sometimes you just can't come back with the team, and you have to realize, hey, you know what? Maybe I need to make an exception. What I've seen in terms of what my own 2 eyes are telling me is telling me that perhaps I may be in the wrong on this one. I need to bend my rules just a little bit more. So I always do think that that's so important when it comes to just anything in life, whether that be sports betting, where you go out to eat, what have you. And something else that you do want to be taking advantage of is those of us that we do everything humanly possible to try to unearth these edges for you here at VSiN, because we've got our summer special ads going on right now. You're able to get in on everything that we do here at VSiN all the way through August 1st for just $59. You go to VSiN.com/subscribe for that. You get all the exclusive betting splits that gives you everything that we're seeing here at Circa along with DraftKings, so you're able to see what the public is betting. You're able to see some of these short bets that are really moving these lines as well. You're able to see the percentage of bets versus the percentage of handle on every single game across all major sports. That'll help you become a smarter, more informed bettor. You get all of this through August 1st for just $59 over at VSiN.com/subscribe. That is VSIN.com/subscribe, as it is cashing out right here on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network. Greg Hoops Peterson taking it through, but I just continue to take a look at this game. I've been in this position a few times where I had the team that I had in my bracket advance to the national title game, and both times I stuck with it. This is the third time in the last 6 years I'm here. I'm sticking with it once again. Like, it has not let me down the first 2 times, and everything that I've seen does tell me that this is a correct handicap. I feel like what I've got right now is a correct handicap. Now, it could be wrong in about 48 or so hours, because I do have a little bit of trepidation with the fact that this is in the home state of Houston. This is out there in the great state of Texas. This is a Florida team that has gotten off to a few sluggish starts. Like, even what we saw here today against Auburn, it was a little bit of a slow start for them, but I still do believe that Florida, in terms of overall balance, in terms of having 2 of everything at every position, they are the one team that's able to check that box. And I think that, just like I thought that going into the Final Four, Houston was the best team to be able to match up with Duke in the NCAA tournament, I think Florida's the best team to be able to match up with Houston, because this Florida team is what I like to call a chameleon. Florida is able to play a slow, controlled style game. If you need to play a game in the 50s, they're going to play a game in the 50s. I still recall those 2 games that we saw when they played against Tennessee. There was, in both of those games that they played against Tennessee, there was one team that failed to get to 50 points in both of them. They are right at home playing a defensive slog. They're also at home being able to play an up-tempo, up-and-down, rapid-fire pace game, as well as we saw them earlier in the year going up against Alabama. Take them down, punk them on the road. So I do think that this Florida team has just the versatility and the pieces to be able to get the job done. It's a Florida team that entered here into the Final Four, playing some of the best defense in all of college basketball as well. They're a top 20 team in the country in opponents' 2-point shooting percentage. They're in the top 20 in terms of opponents' 3-point shooting percentage. Now, we saw the Medal of Houston. These are some grown men that they are not going to want to be denied. They are not going to go down without a fight. You think that you have this Houston team buried, but they're like a roach. You cannot kill them. So that is something that does need to be of mine, but I also do think that you've got the best player out there on the floor in Walter Clayton. He showed that off today here in the Final Four, being able to put up 34 points against Auburn. I will say this once again. He is the first player since Larry Bird to score 30-plus points in both his Elite Eight and his Final Four game. When you're joining the company of Larry Legend, you're certainly doing something right, and hopefully we have this one right. I've got Florida as a 2-point favorite. Right now we're seeing that line at 1. Willing to lay it in. Anything of a 141.5 or less, I'm going to be in on the over on as well. We'll be tracking this movement all night long, but how about if we do get you guys a little bit of baseball as well? We have not touched upon it in an hour and 40 minutes, and we'll do so next on Cashing Out on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network.
Welcome back to Cashing Out here on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network.
We're back here on Cashing Out on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network. Coming into the night, I did not think it was going to take us an hour and 45 minutes to even approach the sport of baseball, but that's exactly what it called for. We had ourselves two amazing games out there in San Antonio, and certainly in hour number 3, we're going to be diving in on those. For everyone that's able to bet the crown, I will give you a crown handicap as well in terms of what we're going to be getting on Sunday as well. I'm sure that everyone is just absolutely clamoring for that one, but we will give that to you because we do have Nebraska going at it in the final against Central Florida. And if you missed it, because the Central Florida versus Villanova game actually wrapped up during the first Final Four game, so if you missed it, I'm sure that many people did. You did have Central Florida get the job done 104-98 in overtime, so that was a game that was harebrained, that was crazy, and if you took the over, that was one of the biggest no sweaters of the year right there, so that's always a lot of fun. But we've also got a lot that's going down in Major League Baseball as well. As someone needs to alert the papers of this. The Cincinnati Reds scored runs on Saturday. They had scored a combined 2 runs in their previous 4 games, and all of a sudden they were able to pop off. They get the job done against the Milwaukee Brewers by a count of 11-7, and I was banking on a little bit of positivity for them, so that one made me very, very happy. And how about if we do take a look at what they're going to be getting on Sunday as well? Myself being from the great state of Wisconsin, I feel like it's in my contract here to be taking a look at this Brewers versus Reds game. This is 9:07, 9:08 on the card, as you do have yourself Carson Spires and the Reds on the road against the Milwaukee Brewers, as one Chad Patrick is going to be on the bum for the Brewers, and Brewers who find themselves as mid-sized favorites. You're going to be finding them between a -145 to a -148, and right now that total is sitting at an 8.5, and I was able to get in on this when you were seeing a few 8s on the over. I still would be looking at an 8 over. I think that this is something that you do want to be taking a look at in Major League Baseball. Some of these teams that they're getting the short end of the stick, they're getting a little bit unlucky. That was certainly the case for the Cincinnati Reds. They were the first team, I think, since 1960 to lose 3 straight 1-0 games. The pitching you knew was probably going to be falling downward a little bit, and you were going to be able to see a little bit of a rise in terms of the offense, and we certainly saw that offensive rise on Saturday. Now, when you go up against Elvin Rodriguez, which the fact that the Brewers have had to give Elvin Rodriguez 2 starts this far this season, like, again, I'm someone from the state of Wisconsin, that's not great to say the least, but I mean, for the Cincinnati Reds, you know that Ellie De La Cruz is going to be able to continue to give you good production, as he's been able to give you a pair of homers. He's a guy that is going to be a threat to be able to go off for 30 home runs and north of 50 stolen bases this year. Christian Encarnacion Strand, who was out for much of the year last year, has gotten off to a little bit of a slow start to the season. He was able to go deep on Saturday. And I do think that there's some upside with some of these guys like Jake Fraley, who's gotten off to a little bit of a slow start to the season. If you look at the advanced analytics, the Cincinnati Reds have gotten a little bit snake-bitten at the plate. And for the Milwaukee Brewers, I actually have a little bit of trepidation in terms of their offense. The game that we saw on Saturday, just the 3rd time out of their 9 games this far this season that they've exceeded 3 runs, and I feel like this was an offense that was due to regress after I feel like they just hit out of their shoes a little bit last season. Like last year they were number 7 in the big leagues in terms of runs per game. Bryce Rang looks to be the real deal. He's been able to hit a 300 thus far this season, like what I'm seeing there, but William Contreras had a career year last year and it's gone straight down the toilet bowl for him. With Christian Yelich, he's never going to be that MVP guy like we saw a few seasons ago, and for Yelich, I certainly think that he's going to do better than hitting a .07 with a .287 on base for the rest of the season, but he certainly has lost quite a bit of power. Your main power hitter for this Brewers team, as a matter of fact, I would say is Rhys Hoskins. Think that there's some upside with Garrett Mitchell, like what I've been seeing out of him in the outfield, but really the bread and butter of this Milwaukee Brewers team is a bullpen, and you did have to use up a little bit of Elvis Figueroa in the game on Saturday. They were smart. They decided that they were just going to have Connor Thomas essentially eat it for 3+ innings, so they aren't going to be having their guys like Ebner Uribe and company out there. And for the Cincinnati Reds, you've got a lot of guys that are sort of middle of the road in terms of this bullpen. Like Sam Moll is someone that did not have to throw on Saturday. I have no faith whatsoever in Emilio Pagan. The fact that he threw 24 pitches on Saturday actually makes me feel a little bit better about the Cincinnati Reds, but I do think that with this Reds bullpen, they're going to be finding themselves neither here nor there. They pick up Taylor Rogers in the offseason, so I like some of those moves. And for Carson Spires, he had some really nice appearances towards the beginning part of the 2024 season, went straight down the tubes for him in the second half of the season, but He looked very good in his first start of the season, gives up 1 run in 6 innings. Again, the offense did not do their part for him, but I do think that for Carson Spires, guy that pitches maybe to a little bit too much contact, but a guy that should be able to go out there, give you a good performance. I think there's a little bit of value there. And Chad Patrick, if you've not heard about him, he went, I believe it was either 13-1 or 14-1 with the Nashville Sounds last season. He's got some okay swing and miss stuff through spring training. He was neither looking great, neither looking terrible either, but he started out the year in the bullpen, so I do have to wonder a little bit about the length. Again, you do have a pretty rock-solid Brewers bullpen, but I do think that what we saw here today between the Brewers and the Reds going to be a little bit more of a sign of things to come. I did set my total more around an 8.7. I like the over, and getting north of a plus 120, I'm going to be willing to take a shot on the Cincinnati Reds on the money line, so we've got that going on, and something else that we've got going on is everything here at VSiN and our summer special, as you're able to get in on everything that we're doing here at the network for just $59. That includes all of our daily best bet emails. That includes everything that we've got in terms of being able to live stream all of our shows 24/7, 365. You do get the exclusive betting splits from DraftKings along with Circa as well. Expert analysis, betting systems, everything that you could ever want. Getting set for the NFL draft, MLB action, NBA, and you're through the NCAA title game as well. You're able to get in on all this through August 1st for $59 over at VSiN.com/subscribe. That is VSIN.com/subscribe, as it is cashing out with myself, Greg Oops Peterson, right here on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network, and certainly we're going to be hitting upon that title game here in the next few minutes. Do want to get you guys a little bit of baseball, but since that very much has been neglected here on the show tonight because we had ourselves just the absolutely tremendous games that we did out there in San Antonio, Texas. But that said, when I take a look at this game, this is not one that made the write-ups because I was very much swallowed up with regards to college basketball in terms of the Final Four, so that's the only reason why this game did not get written up. But I do like the edge I've got here with this Kansas City Royals versus Baltimore Orioles game as well. This is time 15-9-16 on the card. You've got old Chris with a K, Bubich, who goes for the Royals, and Kate Bovich is on the bump for Baltimore. Baltimore is a very slight favorite in a lot of spots, or anywhere between about a -105 to a -112, seeing a -115 out there as well, between about -105 to -110. That number on the Royals, so a relative pick'em game. Most places have a total of 8. I'm starting to see a few 8.5s pop up as well, but whether you've got the 8 or the 8.5, do you think that you've got good value here on the over? We've seen the first few games in this series be rather high scoring. Now, in the first game on Friday, you needed a nice 5-run 8th inning to be able to get that over, but you were able to get the over. And for Kate Bovich, when I looked at him last year, he was pretty solid when he was pitching at home. When he was out there in Baltimore, his ERA was a sub-3.5. He was able to keep the ball in the yard. When he hit the road, things went just completely disastrous for him. He had north of a 7.5 ERA, was giving up a lot of hard contact. His command went downward a little bit as well. And for Chris with a K Bubich, I actually really liked what I saw from him out of the bullpen last year. He has his first start against the Milwaukee Brewers. Gave up either 0 or 1 runs over the course of 6 innings. Looked very rock solid there. He looks like he's going to be the real deal. I remember when he was coming out of Stanford quite a few years ago, there was a lot of upside with him. Never really panned out the first time he was in the rotation. Does feel like that might be happening this time around. And for the Kansas City Royals, this is a reborn offense. When they had their struggles towards back half of the season in 2024, that was because Vinny Pasquantino was out of the lineup. They now have him back. They got in there Jonathan India during the offseason. Hunter Renfroe can be a little bit shaky at the plate, but you know that he's going to give you power. Bobby Witt Jr. actually just hit his first home run of the season here on Saturday, so that's going to be able to help them out. And for the Orioles, they were without Gunnar Henderson to begin the season. They get him back off the injured list. They've been dealing with a few random injuries that have been a little bit, shall we say, costly, but even Hudson Kierstead, who's a little bit more of a platoon guy, is a guy that does a nice job being able to move line, get on base. Jackson Holiday, after a rough rookie season, looks like he's going to be able to provide much more production this season. And for the Royals, they did revamp their bullpen a little bit in the offseason as well. They bring in a guy in Carlos Estevez, who I think is exactly what they need, a very good closer to be able to go along with a nice setup man, and Lucas Erceg. And then on the flip side for the Orioles, you've got Felix Bautista, Yennier Cano, who are, in my opinion, one of the best 1-2 punches in all of baseball in the 8th and 9th inning. They had a Gregory Soto and Anthony Dominguez at the trade deadline last season, and didn't necessarily pan out for them in 2024, but they look a little bit reborn themselves. They look like they're a little bit of a better form of themselves after last year. It was not so great, to say the least, but that said, I do think that both of these starters are going to give up a little bit of something, and especially in the case of Kate Bovich, just at this point, can't trust in him on the road. Did set the Royals at a -123. I'm going to be willing to take a shot on them on this rather pick 'em line on the money line, and in terms of the total, I am liking the over. I did set my total at an 8.9. We'll touch upon this game briefly as well, as we're seeing a total of 9 between the Cleveland Guardians and the LA Angels. Tyler Anderson is going to be going for the Halos, and Luis Ortiz is going for Cleveland. I did take a shot on the under with Luis Ortiz. Comes on over from Pittsburgh in the offseason, and he was a little bit lucky. He had a mid-3s ERA, about a 3.32, fielding dependent, closer to 4. Not necessarily the world's greatest swing and miss guy. He was only getting about 7 strikeouts per 9 innings 8 seasons ago, but that said, I think that he's going to do a good job against an Angels team that they're dealing with a few injuries right now. Mike Trout is starting to look a little bit more like the Mike Trout of old, but it's been a little bit of a rough start of it for the season for him. Cleveland was also about 23rd in the big leagues in terms of runs per game away from home last season, and that was with Josh Naylor in the fold. They no longer have Josh Naylor, but they do bring in Kyle Manzardo. He's been able to give them some good power. Do you think that the Guardians should be able to get it done? Would be willing to lay up to a minus 124 on that money line. I do like that under as well. Guardians saw the best bullpen ERA in the big leagues last season, and coming up next, we will take a look at what we've got on Monday. Florida versus Houston in the title game. That's up next on Cashing Out on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network.